What is the dumbest thing you've ever received hate for? For talking to a guy I met on a dating site, not knowing he was in a relationship. Dude was messaging me on a dating app, we met up and he seemed cool. We hung out once, he wasn't my type and we parted on good terms, and then his fiancée called me. I said I was sorry, I had no idea. I stopped talking to the guy instantly, but I still faced 6 to 8 months of harassment from this woman and her friends. Threats of assault, I got told I wouldn't live to see my next birthday, I got told I was fat and a slut, they called me nonstop. They said that they knew where I lived, where I went to uni. I even got threats on my blog that I had set up for uni. It was intense. I ended up getting the police involved. From what I know, she stayed with him, but somehow I was in the wrong even though I had no idea she existed. He did nothing wrong, it was all me. So damn ridiculous. Scoring good grades in an exam. I'm from Southeast Asia. Was in one of those advanced classes in high school. But I'm generally laid back as I had other hobbies, martial arts, and drawing. I ranked snugly around 30 to 40 out of 55 students for most tests. But then, one of the major national exams came about. I decided I should start working hard for the major exams and mock tests. Came out 3rd place. Sucked at Mandarin, otherwise my average would have shot me to 1st place. While initially over the moon, I lost basically every friend I had. For being too polite. In Korea, we bow a lot. Like a lot. So, whenever you enter or exit a restaurant you will see many employees bowing at you. So, I do the same thing as a customer. Not necessary, but I feel like I should do it also, so I bow also. One time, I went to this amazing Japanese seitan restaurant in Korea with my Korean friend, and it was delightful. It was the best seitan I had in my life. So, I complimented the chef and his co-worker. The restaurant was operated by only 2 people, it was a very small restaurant, and also bowing at them. I was saying stuff like thank you for providing us such a delicious meal and all the good adjective you can possibly imagine. And had some conversations for about 15 minutes. After exiting the restaurant my friend looked at me like I was an idiot and he just left me. Like WTF? I just appreciated the effort by the chef. For having lunch with my grandma on my lunch break at work. Not joking. I serve a wide area of my state, and when I'm in her part of the state, which was historically underserved by the person in my position before I eat lunch with her during my lunch break. The other administrators I work with in parts of the state that I serve, are now complaining that the only reason that part of the state is getting more attention, i.e. equal treatment to them rather than being neglected, is because I like to have lunch with my grandmother. For making hot chocolate. Last year's Christmas, some lady was criticizing me for being an adult making hot chocolate, saying that's for children. I was having a nice romantic Christmas dinner with my fiancée, so I wanted to make a Dutch hot chocolate with a chocolate liqueur whipped topping. I just looked at her like she was crazy. This happened at a store. I was telling my fiancée what we needed to make dinner and dessert and the lady was eavesdropping. I needed the hot cocoa so we could have cookies and cocoa and watch some Christmas movies together. I'll do the Reddit thing. Not me but my dad. So, my dad used to have trouble remembering names, so he would call people boss. Some dude went up to him one day and got really mad at this nickname. When my dad asks why, the dude no joke says, boss backwards means sorry son of a bitch. And that is the most pathetic cry for attention I've ever heard. My dad just laughed, which further pissed the guy off, but he really couldn't help it. Dude wanted to fight my dad and my dad was just laughing. Imagine how embarrassing that would be. This was in a bar too, so maybe the dude was drunk, but still that was a hilarious story. When my son was a baby, his father's cousin threatened to kill my son. She said a lot of mean and hateful things about me and my son. Shortly after, his other cousin's girlfriend did the same thing. All because my boyfriend's family were demanding a DNA test. I just said, why should I have to? Did your cousin's girlfriend do a DNA test? Did your brother's girlfriend do a DNA test? Apparently, that meant I was talking bad about children and we both deserved to be killed. Later that week I moved out and switched jobs. Afterwards, my boyfriend's sister texted me telling me she was going to take my son. She didn't even ask, she just said, "I'm going to pick him up for a few hours." When I said he's not allowed near the cousin and the cousin's girlfriend, she flipped out saying she will take my son anywhere that she wants and there's nothing I can do about it. I blocked that entire family and 3 years later they still say I talked bad about kids when not once did I say anything bad about a child. Not wanting to talk to a family member who tried to kill me. My sibling thinks that I should be more appreciative of her and should apologize for my mental illnesses being a burden to her. This woman tried murdering me. I'm not going to speak to her after she almost shut me up for eternity. I consider any sympathy she could have received as off the table after showing how little she values my life. Thank God the rest of my family understands my trauma and sees why I never want to hear her voice again. Not being able to have children. A guy took it upon himself to introduce me to concepts such as IVF and surrogacy. When I told him those wouldn't work, he basically told me, "Well, it's no wonder you have no children if you won't even consider the most basic of options." My eggs work perfectly fine, as far as I know. But pregnancy would literally kill me, and I'm on life-saving medications that would cause severe birth defects. But to hell with me, am I right? Just a choosy beggar, a wannabe victim. And before someone tells me, just adopt/get a cat, because someone always does, you're not nearly as helpful as you think you are. Video games, back when I was a teen. So about 10 to 15 years ago. My parents didn't know jack shit about it, so they chose to try to squash it out of me instead of understanding it. Sucks when all you want to do on your free time as a teen was play with the boys. Today I am still very much a gamer, and they kinda accepted it. Just last week, my mom asked me why I didn't pursue a career in video games because I love it so much. I simply answered, "You never supported my love for it, and since you paid for my college, I never thought you would have approved." The look of guilt and realization on my mother's face was kinda bittersweet. My ex-wife made up a bogus domestic violence claim in order to help her case in family court, when she decided she wanted a divorce and fully custody of the children. The police issued a 2-week temporary restraining order based on her say-so, and pointed out to me that they didn't actually require any evidence, and that nothing I had to say mattered. She then went around to all of our friends and neighbors and perpetuated this made-up nonsense, using the existence of the temporary order to add credibility to things. Obviously when this went to court the judge immediately tossed it out due to a lack of any actual evidence, but by then the damage was done, and everyone believed I was a wife beater. Out of about 20 people or so, only one thought this sounded a bit strange and contacted me to figure out what had happened, but he's since been barred from communicating with me by his wife who chooses to believe my ex instead. She really took this made-up victim thing to the extreme, even going so far as to go on a government-funded wellness retreat for survivors of abuse. Not liking football, soccer for the US people. Where I live in the Netherlands, there is a huge football influence. It's way less now, but everyone footballed, everyone was part of a football club and followed everything with the local club and national. Both girls and boys. I just simply didn't like it, still don't. Both grown adult people and children could get so petty about it. Even my teacher was petty about it. Even gave me a bloody time out in the hallway as a punishment when I wasn't participating with enthusiasm in the classroom about football, and couldn't admit I liked one football team. I just needed to admit it, because it made the whole class mad and ruined the mood for everyone. Dude was weird, because he even gave a punishment when I wouldn't pray in class. I live in a country with religious freedom. My parents were not happy with the dude. Never made the punishment homework. Not me, but my husband. He has a fondness for bright neon colors, which is so opposite to his quiet, reserved personality that it tickles me to death. So, he came home from work. We spent an hour of, "No, what do you want for dinner?" He ran and threw some non-work clothes on. Neon yellow-green shirt, and navy shorts, and his neon orange sneakers, and ran to get takeout. The lady in front of him in line turned around, looked my husband up and down, and proceeded to excoriate him for his choice of clothing. How on earth could he go out in public like that? What was he thinking? That doesn't match at all. Those colors are insulting and his wife should be ashamed of herself for letting him dress like that. My husband, who is normally so polite, looked her up and down and told her he could change clothes, but she'd always be an ugly bitch. I was so proud of him. Though he may have had to convince me to not go driving to find this woman so I could punch her in the nose. Believing in evolution. At a college. For context, this was at a Christian college during the first week of living in the dorms, before classes started. Many of the other students there had been homeschooled or went to very conservative, private high schools where evolution may have been taught to some degree, but human evolution was treated as just a theory if taught at all. As such, they had a very limited and flawed understanding of the science, and obviously there was a lot of familial and communal baggage that encouraged them to reject it as well. Years later, all of them, or at least the ones I still see on Facebook, have changed their tune on the matter. The school in question actually had a very good medical science department, for a school of its pedigree and size, so I suppose being exposed to a less biased version of the science made it easier for them to accept, and being away from their family also removed some of that pressure or burst their bubble a bit. I still resent how they treated me for not being a good Christian, but ultimately it had little effect on the course of my life. Thanks for listening to Reddit Rundown. Give a thumbs up and subscribe, and help me get to 1,000 subs. Leave a comment below on what kind of topics or stories you would like to hear. You can also check out other videos on my channel. Thanks and have an awesome day.